Hey guys, it's Ron Williams here from Hoodle, and I'm in the New Home Niche Blueprint group and in the Affiliate Realtor group today. It's Wednesday, and as you can see behind me, I'm back in the woodshed out here at the end of the blacktop, you know, where we live in east central Illinois. It's kind of almost no man's land, not quite, but cold here, warming up, and I hope it's warming up where you guys are. I wanted to hop in today and I want to talk for just a few minutes about kind of this hideous myth that just continues to crop up over and over and over again that we really need to kind of address. And by the way, you know, if realtors don't address this, ain't nobody going to address it. Okay, nobody's going to address it for us or for you. We have to understand this issue ourselves and come to terms with it. And so hang on one second here. And you know, as I'm getting started, if you're present here today, if you hop in, would love for you to connect on StreamYard.com/Facebook. It's just a free connection that connects up StreamYard, which is what I'm using, to Facebook, and then you can comment in the comment section and wherever you are on whatever page you are, and I can see it and can respond back. So. And you know, I wrote when I wrote this down that I wanted to talk about this topic today. I really didn't stop to think about how much stuff there is in it, and we're not going to be able to cover it all at all. So I'm just going to focus on one little piece of it. Okay, I'm going to focus on and what I want to talk about today is realtors' place in new construction. What is our role in new construction? As a realtor, and in particular when it comes to serving buyers. Okay, there's a whole other aspect of it on how we serve builders and land developers, but I want to focus on the buyer side of it. And so I'll tell you what happened. You know, not too long ago, I had still yet another conversation with a realtor that we'd gotten on the phone. You know, he had messaged me, and we got on the phone. We start talking, and he said, you know, I just don't know what value I provide, or if I provide any value. And I hear this so many times, and where realtors will say, well, you know, my only value is I registered the buyer with the builder, and then I walked away. You know, and you hear this a lot of times. You know, where where realtors, what they'll do is we'll get a buyer that wants to build a new home, or maybe we can't find anything else that meets their criteria. And so we decide, okay, this is a potential new home buyer. And we take them and we, you know, either they know of the neighborhood, they know, and it happens a lot with production builders in particular, where they know of a neighborhood and they haven't walked through the house yet, and we take them to the neighborhood and we register them. And then, you know, so many times, and I'm not saying you have done this, but it happens a lot where the realtor will go and register the buyer and then just kind of be around, but not really stay involved until it comes time for cha-ching, the closing table, right? You know, we remember to show up at the closing table. Now, I wouldn't have thought that this would have been the case, you know, back in the day when I started getting into new construction, but I started interviewing builders, and I'll do this in another session. You know, I want to show you guys how to interview builders about their experience, their perception, and the value that they're looking for from realtors. And that, I'll tell you what, that is a fascinating journey. It's a fascinating interview to do with 10 or 20 or 30 builders. It'll really change your perspective. But one of the things that builders would tell me, when I would ask them, I'd say, well, so, you know, builder, have you ever had a bad experience with a realtor? And so many times builders go, oh my gosh, yeah, you had to ask that, didn't you, Ron? You know, and they would tell me a very similar story. Always a little bit different twist to it, but very similar story where a realtor brought a buyer to me, and they registered the buyer, or it could be a production builder, a custom builder, semi-custom builder, but they brought the buyer, they registered the buyer, and then I didn't see him again until the closing table. And in a lot of cases, this is the builder's perception of what we do as realtors. I just show up, I drop them off. Hey, here's a builder, here's a house, see ya. And then we show up at the closing table. And in fact, there are some teachers who teach that that is the way that you should do it. And I don't think that's the case. And there are some builders who will coach that, some of the bigger builders go, hey, we'd kind of really just prefer that that's what you do. Just drop them off, stay out of the way, and we'll get you your check at the end. And so, and there's a tendency with realtors, and sometimes I will do these big surveys with realtors, and I'll ask, questions like, what's easier, a new construction build or selling a used home, or I'll give them several different choices. And so many times realtors will come back and say, oh, new construction's easier, easy peasy. All I have to do is register, drop them off, and then show up at the closing table. And I'm telling you what, if you do that, it's not only wrong for the buyer and the builder, but it is doing such an absolute disservice to you that you're missing out on so much opportunity that you cannot even possibly fathom. You're losing so much money if you ever do that. And it's not really anybody's fault, I don't think, um, because here's what happens is a lot of times, most of the time with new construction, realtors don't know much about it. We haven't had much experience with it. There's not really anybody teaching it. There's not a lot of coaching that goes on with new construction. We very often we don't know where to find the right answers. We don't even know the right questions to ask. And so what happens is very often realtors just avoid it. And when they can't avoid it, okay, I've got a buyer who wants to build a new house, and, I want to get them in a new construction house. And sometimes we really want to do this. And realtors want to get a new construction, but we just don't know, what is my role? What am I supposed to do other than just register and get out of the way? I mean, it's new construction. What could go wrong, right? Well, let me tell you, some things can go wrong. There are things, there are issues, even with brand new homes, and there always will be, and always is. So, but what happens is, we don't know much about it, and so we tend to just kind of avoid it, and we go drop off the buyer, and we think, okay, this is my only job. And here's another myth too that we'll talk about another time. But a lot of times realtors feel like, well, the buyer is going to have to pay more if the builder uses me, so maybe I should just step out of the process and they can negotiate directly. And when you do that, here's what's happening. Okay, and I've shared this many times. So if you've been around any of my classes or talks, you probably heard this. But the builder, albeit, and they may be a terrific builder, they may be the best builder that God's ever created, best builder under the sun. They may be good people and fine people, but the builder represents the builder. The builder's reps represent the builder. Everybody on the builder side represents the builder. That doesn't mean they're they're bad. It doesn't mean they're underhanded. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means they're primarily concerned. Yes, they want to make sure that the buyer has a good experience and that they get a good testimonial and everything goes well. But the builder represents ultimately the builder. And so if you drop off the buyer and don't truly represent the buyer through the process, then the buyer is going unrepresented. Okay. And there is no difference in price from any builder I've ever spoken to, that when we have the conversation about, will you sell the house cheaper if there's no realtor involved, every sincere builder who has a sincere conversation with me will tell me, no, that cannot happen. It absolutely cannot happen. I will not sell, I've got two houses, A and B, and I will not and cannot sell house B uh, cheaper just because I sold them directly to the buyer without a realtor involved, because it wrecks the basis points of the whole neighborhood. And so they can't just like discount it and give that 5% or 2.5% or whatever it is back to the buyer. It's just the builder gets to keep more profit. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. But all these things together, the fact that builders would rather keep more profit. Very often, when builders look at using a realtor or a realtor's bringing somebody, most of the time, probably 99.8% of the time, the realtor doesn't have much experience in new construction. And so the builder feels like, and the experience from their standpoint is that the realtor's not really providing a ton of value. And so many times you do hear this story from builders and from realtors that the realtor just dropped off the buyer, registered them, and then showed up at the closing table. I've had multiple builders actually have told me stories where they got to the closing table, and I got to believe that this happens occasionally, or I wouldn't hear it all the time. But I've had multiple builders tell me they showed up at the closing table or a day before the closing table, and a realtor called him up on the phone and said, "Hey, John, I just want you to know I sent that buyer out. I sent that buyer to come see you 6 months ago or whatever." And man, I mean, how embarrassing that's got to be, and uncomfortable and awkward for all the parties. And if the realtor did send the buyer, then I got to say that the realtor should have connected with the builder and introduced and made that introduction, right? You don't just send them off and say, "Hey, go talk to John, and I'll see you at the closing table," right? But you hear these stories, and so all this stuff together kind of leads to this experience on the builder standpoint, that realtors really don't know new construction. They're not interested in new construction. They don't provide much value, and they just want to grab a quick check and not provide value. And I'm not saying that that's true or false, but sometimes it's true. At least in their perception, it's true. Very often in the builder's perception. And that leads builders to go, I'm not so impressed with what I see with realtors. Okay. So I want to dispel a myth for you right now. Okay. You as a realtor, if you want to specialize in new construction, number one, you're very needed. Okay, you're needed not just you're needed by the builder, but you're absolutely needed by the buyer. Okay, the new construction journey is different. It's different than buying a used home. It's absolutely different. If you ever want to talk about this, feel free to reach out. If you have any questions about any of this, feel free to DM me, and we can message back and forth or chat or get on a call and talk about it. But the new construction buyer journey is fundamentally different from buying a used home. When we buy a used home, and you're helping a buyer with a used home, what do? You go qualify them. You make sure they're qualified financially. You figure it out, what their time frame is, what they're looking for. We click it into the MLS, and we pull up the 37 homes that meet their criteria, and away we go, right? With new construction, it's absolutely different, because it starts with not the house, but it starts with the neighborhood. It starts with, what are the places where we can build this dream home that you have in mind? What neighborhoods, because of conformity rules, because of amenities in different neighborhoods, and HOA, and from all that. It starts with the community itself. Okay, is the first thing. And so the buyer journey, the new construction buyer journey, different from the used home buyer journey. I won't talk any more about that right now. But the other thing is that new construction buyers themselves are different from used home buyers. They're really fundamentally different. A couple of things about new construction buyers I'll throw out real quick. And if if you have a pen, I would jot these things down. And by the way, again, on this one, there's an article that I've got that I can share with you guys if you want. Reach out to me afterwards, and I'll put it someplace where you can download it. But there's a research that was done several years ago, the absolute best research that I've ever seen. It's not mine. It's done by a lady that worked for a National Association of Home Builders in the U.S. Census Bureau, and they did a research of 700 new construction buyers, people who had bought a new construction home, and they looked at their demographics and their psychographics and what were the things that are most important to them. Here are the things that are most important to a new construction buyer, really quickly, and I would jot these down. Number one is quality. Okay, they look for quality of life. Okay, and when they're choosing a neighborhood, it is all about the community. You should write that down too. Community, community, community. It's all about the place. It's about the where. It's not about the who am I going to build with. That's not where they start. It's not what am I going to build. They have an idea on that already, but it's about where can I build this house. And so for a new construction buyer, they're quality conscious. They're also very safety conscious, of course. You know, they want to have a safe community. Of course, it's always, and you guys know it for everybody, it's, you know, really high priority is the school system for the kids, if there's kids involved. But there's a couple of other things about new construction buyers too that you ought to know. One is they tend to be advanced educated. They generally are, you know, bachelor's, master's, or above. You know, so they're white collar in a lot of cases. I don't know if that's still a word we use, but they're advanced educated. They're affluent. They've got a little bit more money to spend. They may not have enough to buy, you know, Taj Mahal or Kanye's mansion, but you know they can certainly have the option to have options. And here's a third thing: they want what they want. So I used to call this, well, I guess the word for it is discerning. You know, they want to know what their options are. This is an important one, and I hope you're writing this down and leaning into it because they want to know what their options are. They want to know what their options are on the neighborhoods. They want to know what their options are on who the builders are that I should be considering. They want to know their options on different types of construction, and even some of them want to know their options on things like smart home options or um, solar panels or just other things that they want to know, right? And so because of this, because they've got more money, they're a little bit more advanced educated, and they're fluent and they're quality conscious. They tend to spend a lot more time researching the process. And one of the things that new construction buyers do all the time, almost all the time, is they are out networking with other new construction buyers. If you ever want to know how to find some new construction buyers, if you got to go find another new construction buyer, go talk to somebody who's built a house and then talk to five more and talk to five more. Go through a new home neighborhood, go find a way to connect with people who have built houses someplace in the past. You can even drive. I've done this in neighborhoods where you just drive through a new home neighborhood and you see people out, you know, as they're walking around, people who've already built in that neighborhood, and you just pull over your car and you stop and talk to them and say, hey, you know, my name's Ron and I work with Coldwell Banker, and wanted to, you know, I specialize in new construction. Would love to ask you about your experience with building here. You know, how's it been, and blah blah blah. And so when you start to understand the new construction buyers and you begin to network with them, guess what? They all know who the other new construction buyers are, because new construction buyers talk to other people who have previously built because they want to know their options. Okay, here's where the rub is. Here's the problem. When it comes to realtors and when it comes to the MLS, we don't have a whole lot of information to give them, right? So you've got these buyers that are very discerning. They want to know their options. One of the ways to think about this on the options too is that I used to say, the way I'd say it is that new construction buyers want to have their fingerprint or their thumbprint on the construction of their dream home. Okay. That doesn't mean that they want to necessarily pick every, you know, ceiling fan and you know, some of them do, you know, and the fireplace mantle and everything else, you know, and faucets. Some of them do. Others would be very satisfied with, hey, here's a good builder. I trust that this builder is a good package of products that they're pulling together. I trust my realtor that they're putting me onto the right builder and that this is all going to work out. But they always want to have influence over what's being built to some degree. Maybe it's just the floor, the carpet, the paint color, the cabinet, something else. So it, here's the rub. When it comes to new construction, traditionally, realtors don't know much about the most important things that the buyers need to know. Where are all my neighborhood options? That's number one. That is number one. That realtors don't have access to that. In fact, that is why we built Hoodle. We're creating, and if you haven't seen Hoodle, I invite you to go take a look at it on your laptop and pull it up on your computer, hoodle.com. We're creating a realtor-driven, realtor-led web platform for new home building where a buyer can go and connect with the neighborhoods where they can build in any given area in the United States, where they can connect with who the builders are that build there and what some of the differences are between those builders, the size homes that the builders build, the number of homes, how long they've been in business, and where they can connect with you as a realtor. Okay. And there is such an incredible void or opportunity when it comes to new construction, because there's just very few realtors who have stepped up to the plate. And here we've got these buyers that want to know their options and they can't find them on their own. And they also can't find a realtor who actually knows a whole lot about it either. About 0.1% of realtors across the United States, out of 2 million plus realtors in the United States, less than 1 in 1,000 realtors will sell one or more, will sell more than one new construction home a year. So most realtors who are, you know, want to be a new construction specialist or have thought about it or something, they're generally only selling one new home a year. And that that's going to put you in a place where it's hard to really specialize. Okay, if you want to specialize in new construction, the opportunity is absolutely there. So here's what the opportunity is. Okay, let me give you just a couple things and then we'll wrap up. And what we said was the new construction buyer journey is different. New construction buyers themselves are different, and of course the building process is way different. But here are a few things where you can come in, you can step into this process and create amazing value that the buyers and the builders love you for. There's no reason to be the realtor that, hey, I'm just going to drop them off and show up at the closing table because I don't know anything about this. Lean into it. Lean into it. Step into this process because the buyers need you and the builders need you and the builders reps need you. Okay. But they need you to be a certain way. So let me tell you what that is. All right, so here's a few things. Fiduciary and a guide. Okay, we shouldn't take this idea of fiduciary and guide lightly. I don't believe. I can't. You know, um, buyers, new construction buyers, they want a guide. They don't just want somebody to drop them off and then show up at the closing table. They want somebody who's going to hold their hand through this process. In fact, if you learn how to do that, and if you learn how to articulate that to the buyers, that look, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if you want to build, I will be with you through this entire process. I will hold your hand. We'll walk through it together. I don't know everything that's going to happen. I specialize, but I don't know everything under the sun. I'm learning, but I will work with you and I'll give you the same guidance, the same expertise and help in building your new home as I would if you're buying a used home. And watch how many buyers that you didn't know were new construction buyers. Watch how many people will say, really? Well, I tell you what, if you're going to do that, yes, we would love to build a new home and we'd love to have your help on it. And so that's another place where you can begin to pick up new construction buyers really fast, is just to learn how to articulate that I specialize and I will help you and we'll walk through it together. So number one, buyers are looking for and deserve and need a fiduciary and a guide through the process. It's not just about pointing them down the street and saying, hey, there's the neighborhood and here's a model home. Let you get you registered. I'll see you in 6 months, right? It is about walking through that process with them. That is absolutely, absolutely what the new construction buyer wants. And it's what the builder wants for you to do with the buyer, okay? And when you do this, you create, instead of, putting up walls and putting up, defense mechanisms where they're feeling like, wow, and a lot of times builders say, man, the realtor made more money off that deal than I did. And, by the time it was done, and all they did was drop the person off. So you want to build bridges, not walls. Okay. You're not building defenses, you're bringing down their defense mechanism, and you're just adding value. Okay. You're adding value in your presence. So fiduciary and guide. Number two, troubleshooter. And along with that, I put troubleshooter slash mediary. Okay. When it comes to new construction, guess what? Things are going to go wrong. Things always go wrong. You've got a lot of parties that are involved. You've got the drywallers and the roofers and the framers and the flooring guys and the trim guys and the HVAC and plumbers, everything, right? And sometimes product doesn't come in on time, especially now in our current situation with problems with the supply chain. Things don't come in on time. There are miscommunications. There's problems, okay? The place where you should be in this, in my opinion, number one, if you're representing the buyer, you got to represent the buyer, okay? But number two, you're not there to, oh man, we're going to get the builder on this one. You're being an intermediary, and you're trying to bring these two parties together for a successful transaction, a successful relationship. Sometimes, because of the way that we negotiate on used homes, realtors walk into the same new construction with the same type of mindset where, my job is to beat down the builder, get a better price. I get that. But it's different with it when it comes to new construction, because they've got fixed cost. And we don't generally understand all those fixed costs, but they have costs involved, and they have to make a certain profit margin, or they can't, or they go out of business, right? And so it's not our job to just like beat down the builder. And that's one of the things where realtors kind of make a mistake, is because they try to step over this line with good intentions. I'm representing the buyer. I'm gonna get that builder for us. I'm gonna get that builder for you. And all that does is it just messes up the deal really, really bad. You want to be the person who is, yes, you're representing the buyer, but you're also protecting that relationship between buyer and builder, okay? And between buyer and buyer's rep. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to do everything according to Hoyle. Doesn't mean that everything is going to be, perfect. I'm not saying that, but you are there as a mediary to try to build those bridges where you can, okay? And keep things moving forward. So number one, fiduciary. Number two, troubleshooter and mediary. Okay, not a divorce attorney. You're a mediary. Okay, mediary. Um, Third, we talked about negotiator. Negotiator. There are times when you're going to have to negotiate things, but it's not. As a negotiator, it's not there to try to beat the builder down. But make sure you do want to make sure that the buyer's getting as a fair deal as they absolutely can. Number four, we've already said this one, buyer's rep. Number five, scheduler. So the fifth thing is, one of the things that realtors don't do historically, that I think we miss the mark on, you need to do is, and you should do this before you ever go into this relationship. The best time, by the way, to be building these relationships with the builders and the neighborhood developers and the communities, the community managers, is before you need to. The best time to build these relationships is before you need to know all that information. Start now. If you didn't start last week, start this week, okay? And start to build those relationships. But when you do, one of the things, and what I do with Hoodle and with affiliate realtors, is I teach you guys how to interview all these different parties. There's 5 or 6 different kinds of interviews that you can do with a builder, with a sales rep, with a community manager, with in different parties that will arm you, just arm you like no other realtor in your market. Hey, as I said earlier, a vast majority of realtors are not specialized in new construction. There are very few realtors that are stepping out of their comfort zone and saying, I am going to learn this. But when you do, you can dominate that space. I don't care what market you're in. And by the way, there are niche markets within the niche of new construction. At least a dozen or 20 different niches within sub niches within the niche market of new construction. So when you step out and you begin to learn this, you can lead the way very quickly. So when one of the things you want to do is scheduler, and that is understanding the new construction process. When does the buyer need to be making the decision about their cabinets? When do they need to be making the decision about this? When does this need to happen? What's our target date? And learning all this stuff and getting scoped out on your own before you ever step into that thing. Now, hey, when you do this, you start providing so much value unexpected by the builder, because that's generally not what they're experiencing with realtors. But let them experience that with you, because all of a sudden they're going, wow, this person is not like all the others. They're adding value. They're keeping the buyer informed. They're building bridges. They're making sure the communication is open. And and when you do this, you become the favored realtor. Okay. I've talked to probably 100 or more sales reps and builder companies that they absolutely have favorite realtors. Okay. And if you become a favored realtor, guess what? You it's a good place to be. Okay. Let me put it that way. And we can save that for another conversation. But if you're one of the favored realtors that they love, you're one of their VIP realtors, um, you win big. You just win big. Last thing I'll say here, as far as things that you can and should do as a realtor, and this is kind of an optional one, but I think it's a good one, and I don't know what to call it, but uh, being the keeping the photo diary or chronicling the process. And I did this a little bit, but probably not as much as I could have. And it's something that I've heard several times. I think is just an absolutely amazing thing. So one of the things you need to know is for new construction buyers, very often it's their first time building a new home, or buying a new home. And as we've talked about in different sessions, a majority, literally a majority of home buyers in any given year would prefer having a new home versus a used home, but most of them don't do it. I'll save that for another talk. And when we talk to people who have built a new house and we interview new construction buyers, one of the things they compare it to is you hear them talking about it like when they got married. I didn't know what to expect. Or when they had their first child, we had no idea what to expect, but we were very excited. We were very involved. We're out there all the time. We're taking photos. We want to know what's going on. We want to understand this process. So they are very emotionally involved for the most part. Now, in a lot of cases, you know, one of the things that realtors can do that I think is an amazing thing is to help them stay involved. You could be connecting. Now, you don't want to be out there, pulling people off of track, but you can definitely go out, take photos. If you're in the neighborhood, if you're out by there, take photos. Check in with them, find a way to communicate with them what's going on with the house, what stage they're in, and just keep be the intermediary and chronicle the process for them, and you will win so many points. And the other thing you're going to win is referrals. Okay, because When you step out and you begin to specialize like I'm talking about, and really becoming the fiduciary and the guide for new construction, very quickly you're in a class of your own where there's maybe only a handful of other realtors in your market. I don't care if it's the biggest new construction market in the United States, you can very quickly move ahead of everybody else. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. Your role and need for realtors in new construction. You're absolutely needed, but you're needed to be different than the realtors who are just like standing in the wings and registering, and then they kind of run away until the closing table happens. So I think that's all I wanted to share with this on you today. With you today, there is a document that let me put it out here. If you haven't got this already, you really ought to go grab this. It's a free ebook that we put together last year, but it's still. I just went through it again, just read through it again. It's absolutely, completely true still today, and it's at newhomenicheblueprint.com. And what I would do is that little ebook or PDF file goes through the seven biggest problems, seven, not five, seven biggest problems that new construction buyers report having when they build a new home. The seven biggest issues. And I would go grab a copy of it, watch the videos that go along with it. There's seven videos, there's a whole series of videos on each one of those seven problems. And you can address any one or two of those and begin to move forward yourself and move forward on behalf of your buyers in one or two or three of those issues, of those seven issues. And very quickly you become, again, the leading realtor in new construction. Hey, if you want to know more about this topic, um, we're doing a webinar on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. It'll be probably an hour 15 minutes long, and we're going to dive down into the details of, what is Hoodle and how do you use that, and what are some of the big differentiations that you can create as a realtor. You don't have to be experienced in new construction to win at new construction. You don't have to be married into the builder's family. You don't have to be part of a big marketing, have a big marketing budget, or be part of a big team. All you have to do is be different and come at it with a new approach. And that's what I'm going to talk about on Sunday evening. If you happen to be available at 6 p.m., would love to have you join us. Just shoot me a DM and I will give you the link to register and show up. And we'll dive down more into this topic then. But look, there's a big opportunity, especially moving forward in 2022 right now. It's maybe never been bigger. The number of new construction buyers is going up, and the realtors, and then the lack of realtors really specializing in new construction has remained very skinny. So there's an opportunity for you to step into that space and add unique value and win on behalf of your buyers, on behalf of the builders, on behalf of the developers, and most of all on behalf of you. So guys, I hope you got something good out of this. If you did, would love to get a like or a comment, or tell somebody to come join us in this group. I'll be here next Wednesday. We'll do it again. And I don't remember our topic for next Wednesday. If you got particular topics that you want to talk about, again, just reach out to me, and I'll see if I can add some value and add some help, and maybe it'll be a topic that we do for everybody. So love you guys. Hope you have an amazing week. So go out there and be amazing for somebody else. And I'll talk to you later.